Thank you. So now we will have our leaders talk. If I start with the moderator, closest to me, we have Ahmed Amar, who is the technology evangelist and author. Next to Ahmed, we have Rashid Al Othman, who is the CIO of the Bank of Al Bilad in Saudi Arabia. Then we have Faisal Eldad, who is CIO from the National Bank of Oman. And then we have Ali Al-Amran, the Head of Technology Services from the Arab National Bank in Saudi Arabia. And finally, we have Bassam Banjari, who is the Chief Technology Officer of the Dubai Gold and Commodities Exchange. Can we please give them a warm welcome? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, welcome again. Hopefully you will be late for the lunch. Basically it's an interactive session. We will be talking about different aspects related to the digital innovation and digital opportunity. So I would like to start with Mr. Uthman. Would you like to share your experience with regards to the digital opportunity and digital innovation? Yesterday I saw your presentation where you have demonstrated some videos and can you please talk on that?
Basically, everyone I know, the audience, because I think yesterday I extensively covered most of the good ideas that we have implemented or it is under the way to be implemented. But nevertheless, is that there is a need for the innovative ideas that need to come, and it's not what we have achieved so far, but the market is very demanding. So I'm not going to talk something about something in particular, but I'd rather just, since I covered it yesterday, to give the other guys the chance to talk about that.
I'll give my experience perhaps for last year on what we did at National Bank of Oman. So the problem that we were trying to address is the changing world, where it's difficult to predict, as the earlier speakers were mentioning, because very difficult to predict the future. What is really sustainable is to build in a capability within the organization which will continue to innovate and will be able to adapt to the changing circumstances. This was the intention. So one of the questions which I had asked around earlier on when I joined the bank, which really woke me up, I asked the team, it was a casual conversation, I asked, in their opinion, in a scale of 1 to 10, how much do they think the bank gets advantage of their thinking capability? And the answers really surprised me. It'll be interesting if you ask the same questions to your constituents. And the number was not very flattering. It was most of the time it was less than 5, and that is on the higher end. Although some of the guys looked very impressive and intelligent. So which meant that we hire people for their thinking power, because that's the industry that we are in. We are in a very intellectual capital industry. But we don't seem to take advantage fully of that capability. So that thought came into my discussion along with the team. So what we did is we institutionalized an innovation day. So we said, we called it the car, and then we said, like Infosys, there was a innovation day that we planned, and there was only two criteria that we had given. I just want to give you a background also. This was, the context was there were already many initiatives that was being executed by the team, so it was a very busy period as is. But we said somewhere close to the end of the year we'll have this innovation day. The two criteria was, it should not just be an idea, it should culminate into a working prototype. This is number one. Number two, it has to be business value adding. So these two criteria we said. And I just want to shorten it. We had a really great innovations which came out, and 10 of them was showcased, and it's quite amazing from coming out of that experience. So 10 of these innovations costed us virtually nothing, and they were really business impacting. So my learnings from that was the whole cost of the whole program was less than 1,000 Omani riyal, which is equal to 10,000 dirhams. Most of it went in organizing that party itself. So the key few learnings were sometimes lack generates more innovations. When you throw money at a problem, you become lazy. When you don't have enough, then it sort of generates the gray matter and really good innovations, which is there. The second thing is not having enough time is a wrong excuse. Because as I mentioned, the team was as it is busy. We had over 40 plus initiatives which was already running. But in spite of that, these initiatives came out because they became passionate and they found their own time and so on and so forth. So that's the second learning, that lack of time is not necessary. The third learning was to set strong expectations. This is very important. The expectations that you have set with the team should be strong. That I am expecting, or the team is expecting something really good to come. That level of expectation only will motivate the people, because otherwise generally the tendency to innovate is not always there. I must say, right now we are at the path. 6 of those innovations have been implemented, and some of them are really, I would be happy to share with you post this. Really good. There is no way we could have come up with those kind of innovation, because generally the bank has been doing top down. You build a strategy, then you go about executing the strategy. Bottom up really woke us up, saying that it is so critical to embed into our DNA, to be adapted to this changing market, where you actually seek input without knowing where it's going to lead, and that becomes a propelling capability for the organization to meet the future challenges. Thank you.
I'll skip my 2 minutes to save it for discussion.
No, it is always a big challenge. The lunch is almost ready and it's 2 o'clock and continuing discussion. So it's a big challenge. But anyway, I actually leave the odd man out possible from the desk, because I'm not coming from banking segment. I'm just taking more derivative exchange and credit corporations and all, which is based in Dubai. I just let me share some experience similar to you, that innovation obviously is all business requirement, and when requirement comes, the thing can come, some new ideas. Some ideas work, some ideas doesn't work, but you have to continuously work on the innovation. Just giving a background, when you started this exchange in 2005 under DMCC, as you know, they control the import derivative market, physical commodity in UAE. It's a part of the government of Dubai. So they decided to form a common derivative exchange. And Dubai, as we all know, is a city of gold. So therefore, the main product of the feature, it was gold feature. And obviously, the region is known for oil. So gold and oil is the 2 products we started. But after a couple of years, we realized that, it is there, but it's not giving the exact impact which we are looking for. So then we go back and realize that there are different products which members are looking. And you will be very surprised. The product is designed that there are a group of people who are trading in our exchange. They come and suggest that they are doing arbitration between Indian exchange and United States or UK exchange, and there is a risk of the INR exposure on US dollar. So dollar risk on INR. So we find an opportunity and then run a contract based on to hedge the risk on US dollar versus INR. You won't believe that product becomes so successful, and today 80% is volume handling on that. So organization has certain plan, but doesn't work. We have to be adaptive and see what industry looks, and then accordingly have to build it. This case study is in front of us. It's a great successful product which is launched. Yeah, thank you.
Well, that was good. Basically, what is innovation? You need to define what is the context of the innovation itself. For some, what I know that innovation is about reducing the complexity. For some, it's like solving the problem, which has not been considered. So, in your context, what do you see as an innovation which is relevant to your organization?
See, ultimately we all are doing business. So anything which is contributing to our business growth should be the part of the innovation. And in this context, in this world where things are moving so fast, therefore every organization based on their business domain has to think. Like there was a nice question, statement our colleague has raised that we are talking about social media and all this stuff, but what about the corporate tax? Exactly, I mean this is one challenge. I mean we all can talk about big data analysis, we can Twitter feed and all, but where from the business is coming? If the corporate banking is working 70% or 80% revenue is coming from corporate, so 30% how much money you should spend, right? So that question is always an animal. But yes, we cannot ignore that. Now given an example in our exchange, here, those who are here from invested in UAE, the bandwidth here is extremely expensive compared to any other Western countries. So it's a big challenge for us. Setting up an exchange in the UAE, I'm talking about a client which is globally present. We have Deutsche, we have JP Morgan, we have Freeman, Infineon, Vanguard, and so many companies and associates are engaged. We cannot operate only from right, so we need huge amount of bandwidth, and that costing a lot. So we decided let's provided our member, go to the member what they're looking for, how can we reduce the bandwidth requirement. Then we decided that let those people host their infrastructure with us. So we expanded our data center, provided the hosting facilities to them. And as you know, in all commodity or electronic platforms, speed is the matter. So you always talk about milliseconds, microseconds. And that gives us a lot of business opportunity. It is not only we gain business, we also generate a revenue from IT offering services. And last year, this revenue has gone up 70% by offering this service. So I'm talking about that it is not only that what the world is doing, but we have to see that how relevant from our business point of view. Like for us, we are a B2B exchange. So may not be Twitter feed is so important for us, but yes, it indirectly helps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, making a lot of profit is a kind of innovation you can see. Would you like to share something, or you want to save that? Those are the 22 minutes.
When it comes to innovation, it's about solving a problem, whether that problem is, for example, bringing something more attractive to customers, attracting sales, or reducing cost in the organization, whatever that problem is, coming up with a smart solution is innovation.
Yes, Mr. Faisal, you talk about a lot on the innovation and something you were showing to us also, maybe, if the time permits, maybe you can show the same thing what you just showed to us. So what is the one service you think which has really transformed and which is really an innovative? Because innovation is not always about spending money and sometimes doing the things in a way to solve the problem or in a way to address a situation. What do you think about that?
So again, it's difficult to say one specific one, but one thing I will say is the amount of money and the value derived is not always correlated. Sometimes it's a very small thing that you do can derive a tremendous amount of value. So there were a few innovations which fall into that category. For example, we had this thing tied up with real estate portal with a very simple button at the portal, which generated 24/7 leads for us. This was somebody thinking outside the box, coming up with this idea. It was just a 2 days work, obviously tie up and contract and all that was really good. But the value that the bank derived through getting business through non-traditional sources was very high. So it could come from any place.
Would you like to share something on that?
I have noticed that everybody's talking about the profit, and I tend to agree with Susan when she talked about the marketing. There is also the repetition of the organization where there is, it will add value by, your customer seeing things coming out of your organization. It does not have to be just a direct revenue, although it will lead to a revenue later and there will be a profitability out of that.
Couple of years before, I remember Gartner has given a study where he said today 20% of the organization will have a new role called CDO, which is Chief Digital Officer. So, considering that particular thing, I would like to ask how many of your organization have any kind of role in terms of a digital officer or somebody who can transform, or chief transformation officer who can try to leverage the opportunity which is coming from the digital channels. I just want to validate how much it is valid with us to our region. You have to say some comments,
Jenny would like to.
or maybe this.
What the gentleman said is that, top-down, bottom-up approach of taking suggestions for innovations. Suggestion can be just two-liner. To implement that, the time, investment, technical feasibility, economic viability is a very, very big challenge. If you take the statistics of the best retail innovative bank in the world, which is Standard Bank, South Africa, the Chief Innovation Officer had said that they had got 120,000 ideas in the last 4 years. Only 800 could be implemented. And they face a lot of challenge because there will be a lot of failures. Then what happens to the person who suggested this? It could be failure because of the technical reasons, could be budget reasons. How do you handle this? And keep encouraging and sustain the interest of providing this suggestion for innovation.
That was good.
Consider that as a comment.
Just two comments about what has been mentioned about the Chief Digital Officer. I think that we are not prepared for the position from the business side of the region. There is an opportunity, and I suggest that the CIO should be taking it, at least initially. The CIO is better suited in the region here to play both roles, a CIO and the DGO interference. So that might be a vote for more dominant RP. I don't care. We should be driven by reality. So if you look at the digital space, you will find that banks, at least in Saudi Arabia, they poorly manage their digital business. Sadly, if you look, for example, in the Saudi market, you will find that government organizations, they have better, more mature control over their digital media communication as in Twitter. Not only that, so back to my earlier discussion today, so I am able today to issue a national ID card much faster and much easier than issuing an ATM card in a Saudi bank. So the government sector is, in many aspects, is becoming more efficient, more flexible than a sector that has been recognized as being ahead in competition.
Somebody would like to add on top of that?
Just on the comment of impact of failure and what that does to the suggestion. See, one of the things that an innovative organization has to bring in this attitude of experimentation. So in our experience, what typically happens is the model that we followed was not suggestion translating to implementation. The suggesters were responsible for creating it in in terms of prototype and then I'll take. This was the, our experience shows that the first suggestion, the first idea that comes is not necessarily the way it is implemented in the end. The idea transforms as you collaborate, as you shape it, as you shift it. This is the interesting part that I've noticed. So, and a false idea may lead to a better idea. May the synergies play a role, and it works out. And even if it doesn't work out, there's a learning that is there, which is very valuable.
Yes, globalization and as well as change, they are like strategic in nature, and it is like imminent. Everything is being changed. So I think taking the feedback and trying to improve that particular feedback from different stakeholders, and trying to how we can tweak and how we can improve in order to deliver a kind of service which is really worthy and which can add value. I think that is what it is.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, there is always a chance of failure, but it doesn't mean that you should not venture into that, right? Then the bank would have been not been set up. So, in giving an example, this region, if you remember, 3-4 years ago, there was a lot of construction boom, which is partially coming back gradually. During that time, we realized that there is so much amount of construction, so the steel's requirement, the cement and others are coming in. And there is a risk of importing those and using those, consuming this region. So we decided to launch a contract based on steel rebar. Now, it doesn't mean that the steel rebar, that region is very mature, but we tried to experiment that it might give this region a good opportunity. But unfortunately, it doesn't work out. We spend money, but it doesn't work out. But the knowledge we have to get, the advantage point of view, that we experiment and then we realize that maybe this doesn't work, but something else can work. Let's try on that equation. But I think we have to keep on experimenting something. We are not interested either, right?
Mr. Lee, I would like to know your thoughts on the sentiment analysis, because that's what the gentleman he asked and she said it's not possible. Do you think that sentiment analysis is it possible? Because this is the question you
There are two sides to it. First, the technology side, and second, what matters most to us in the region is applying that technology, or how relevant is it driving. In English it is probably improving, though it is not as reliable as people expected. Because it is built on extensive understanding of the language, as in classifying this word as negative and, or positive, and trying to relate it to the context of the discussion. And that is advancing, but maybe not as mature as it should be, though it might bring some useful insights. The other side of the challenge, which is what is relevant to us, is what about the Arabic side of it? I doubt that it exists. We don't have sufficient R&D in this type of technology.
Mr. Faisal, I would like to ask you the same question basically with regards to the sentiment analysis. Don't you think like a sentiment analysis requires some kind of parameters where we say, okay, here is the customer and these are the sentiments which we usually encounter. Like how Dubai government, they have done like happiness index or something they call it. So they have defined 4 parameters. This is how we are going to measure the happiness for the citizen from the service which we are delivering. Don't you think is it possible, because since your team is mostly involved in the innovation and those kind of things?
See, it's a hard problem, as was mentioned by the previous speaker, but nevertheless, it gives one additional input for you to consider. While it may not be perfect, it's one input to consider. Because as was mentioned by earlier speakers, the banking is shifting a lot. Customers are gaining a lot of prominence and their voice is being heard. So we cannot remove ourselves from that. So we need to have antennas into what is happening. And the neat thing about these tools are it synthesizes and at least it gives you an indication, if not exactly, but in a spectrum it might tell you where you are wavering. Not exactly parameterize it. I do not know if the technology is matured enough. What will be useful, and this is what we try to do, is when we have certain events or some events occur which we have not planned for, it helps to be acutely sensitive around what is the general feel happening. Is it positive? Is it negative? And so on and so forth. So that becomes an internal decision making opportunity for us.
I was thinking during the analysis being provided by the two gentlemen on the boards that, and I tend to agree with him with regard to the banking and the customers changing and monitoring their expectation and making sure that engaging with whatever is going to be satisfactory is something going to be, has to be dynamic. But nevertheless, there is a few items that will always going to be there, which is if you're available, if the service is going to be available and doing exactly whatever being promised to do, is the most likely that will, your customer, whether it is a banking or other than banking, is going to be the same satisfaction. But if you need to see a niche and you distinguish yourself among the other brands, there has to be other measures where it is going to be something very dynamic, where it needs to be implemented and fine-tuned as you move along, and that is going to be a very challenging by itself.
Yes, I would like to open up the panel for the audience. If anyone have any comment or anything need to be asked, please feel free.
Any comments?
Even comments,
Yes.
yes.
Actually, I'm curious to know how do we see innovation, especially we have this distinguished balance from the banking sector. So I would like to know from you and maybe from the audience as well, how organizations are looking at innovation. What is innovation? Is it a set of good ideas that when you hear it you say, wow, this is innovation, or there is a certain framework that we actually have in place that sets the innovation at the core of our business? Do we have an agenda for innovation? How do we measure innovation? And how do we measure, since we are from the banking sector, how do you measure the ROI of innovation? Thank you.
This question is for really, for me as a definition, I said innovation is about like reducing the complexity and making it simple. And in the other way, like you're solving the customer problem from the banking perspective.
I think my simple definition of innovation is answering a need in an original, smart way. So whatever that need is, it could be a need or untapped need for a customer in the market by building a new app or a new device, or solving an internal challenge for an organization. So whatever that thing is, and what we need maybe to have when it comes to innovation is an atmosphere that will stimulate it and reward it. So there is no process for innovation. There is no organization chart for innovation. Okay, so all what we need is an atmosphere that stimulates and rewards ideas.
We'd like to chip in over here just kind of in 2 points. The first one is innovation is